Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another week of the MMA Huddle. And as you can see, Will has not taken his glasses off. I'm, in fact, joined by a special guest because Will is unavailable this week. I am joined by no more than royalty in MMA now. Mate, you've got the upgrade. You've went up to MMA Junkie. Nolan King, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. This is going to be a blast, I'm sure, today.
Yeah, man. I thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I can't wait to talk about a great night of fights with you about last weekend, and then also about this upcoming card. I'm excited, man. Thanks for having me.
No, absolute pleasure. And like we said, man, let's just kick off straight away. Who saw the Korean Zombie do that?
Not me. I thought I had picked Zombie to win that fight. I know he was a slight underdog, but man, I don't think anybody picked for him to go out there and do it that way that he did it. Moicano's such a tough guy, and you know the thing about him is he's only lost to the best of the best. He's lost to Brian Ortega and Jose Aldo, and both of those guys, Moicano took the fight to them. You know, I think for Zombie to come out there and just essentially starch Moicano, no disrespect to him, but I mean that's a statement. It's a rebound fight. I think it might have washed the taste out of Zombie's mouth from that elbow that Yair Rodriguez threw last fight. Made everybody forget that he had lost that fight, and I think he's throwing himself up there to get a top contender in his next fight.
Yeah, no, maybe the rematch with Aldo. That'd be cool.
I would be so in for that, especially with the way that the first fight ended. You can build on that. Aldo clearly needs a fight. That's a great one. I think that if Jose's in for it, let's do it.
Yeah, and I think that dude. Man, because Jose talked a while back about going to boxing after it, but who knows what he'll do. And yeah, the card itself, man, like Kevin Holland dislocated his shoulder, and getting the win. Like I was, kudos to him. Hit it well because someone's got a dislocated shoulder. I'm gonna hit that as hard as I can until the cows come home, man. Like I don't know if that's poor fight IQ, Alicio. I don't know, man, but Kevin Holland's kind of grown on me, man. He's getting there. He's developing.
Yeah, he's definitely learning, I think, from fight to fight. And the weird thing about that fight, I don't know if you felt the same way, but it seemed like after he got that dislocation, I felt like he almost fought better. He was clearly wincing and he was holding his arm really, close to his face, not much movement, but he seemed to be able to land more, like he was landing on a more consistent basis after that happened. I don't know if he simplified his game, so to speak, where he wasn't going for any flashy stuff. He was sticking to the basics, but it was kind of interesting to me because I actually thought he fought pretty good after he hurt his shoulder too, as opposed to before.
Yeah, I agree too. I think it was like a heightened danger kind of thing. His senses kind of strengthened. He went, I can't be messing around, cause especially if he got taken down and landed on it. I can only imagine how that would have felt. Oof. But what impressed anyone in particular? Impressed you on the card?
I mean, I thought that obviously the Rosenstruck knockout was phenomenal to go in there that quickly and knock out Alan Crowder in 9 seconds, second quickest heavyweight knockout in the history of the promotion. So that obviously sticks out in my mind. And then, I thought that the opener between Eric Spicely and Deron Winn that won fight of the night, that was one of the highlights for me. I thought that both of those guys, for a wrestler to battle a jiu-jitsu guy in an absolute striking slugfest where sometimes, it was a little sloppy at times, but I think overall it was you could see the strategies that both guys were implementing, even if they weren't necessarily, the slickest strikers in the whole entire world. I thought they were doing a good job. They were doing what they should have done. Spicely going to the clinch. Winn was doing a good job on his combination. So I thought that was a good bang for your buck fight, and clearly Dana White liked it because he posted a video about it on Twitter afterwards, and then they got the subsequent $50K bonus afterwards.
Yeah, the shortest man in the middleweight division.
Hey, yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. To think that he used to fight at light heavyweight, and I think middleweight obviously is where he's making it work too. I like this quote after the fight when he said he was gonna, he might be short, but he's gonna take his short little legs right to the top of the division. I thought that was a great line. That was a good job. Good job to a good line to shut the haters up, I'd say.
Yeah, it is. It'll be interesting to see how he actually develops, especially when he fights those more high-level strikers, people who like Adesanya, for example, with the length and the reach. That'll be interesting to see how he handles someone like that. But what we're going to do is we're going to kick off and break down the upcoming card, which is headlined by Ngannou and JDS. Now, this card is going to be very interesting. Some fights on there. We're going to start at the bottom. Now, I don't have the exact structure, so we're going to go off because a couple of fights were added because of replacements. But we're going to start with them, and then we're going to work our way up. We're going to start with Jordan Griffin facing Vince Murdoch. Now, as tradition, whoever's hosting, the other person will kick off. So, Nolan, overview on this fight, and how do you see it going?
I think this is a great matchup for fans that aren't familiar with Vince Murdoch. He's a guy that's been working his way up, compiled a 12-3 record. Taking this fight on short notice. I know he has been on the UFC's radar for quite some time. He actually, he was. I don't think this was ever put out there, but he was supposed to. He was actually contacted to step in for. Which fight was it? It was Corey Sandhagen ended up fighting Mario Batista on a card earlier this year. I forget. I think it might have been. Was it Lineker? I'm trying to remember. Whoever's opponent, it was UFC Brooklyn.
Yeah,
I think it was
Sandhagen, Lineker.
Yeah. So Murdoch was actually contacted for that fight to step in, and he actually he weighed too much to fight at 135. This fight, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is 145 pounds, so he won't have to worry about that here. But he's clearly known that the UFC is going to come knocking for quite some time. So I'm sure he was biting down, raring to go ever since he got that call back in January. So. I think he'll be ready, and I think Jordan Griffin is a guy that brings it. He's a lot better than I thought he was going to be when he entered the Contender Series last year. He picked up the big win on the Contender Series, and then he had a great back-and-forth fight with Dan Ige. We obviously know how good Dan Ige is after seeing him last weekend beat Kevin Aguilar in sound fashion. So I think this will be a good back-and-forth matchup. I'm going to lean with Jordan Griffin just because I think he is a better overall fighter, is more experienced, and he's not taking it on short notice. But I think Murdoch is, obviously has good experience outside the regional scene, and I'm sure he has been preparing for some type of opportunity like this if it were to arise.
Nice. Yeah, Murdoch, when I watched his fight, he lost because of groin strikes in that Super Fight League or something like that it was.
Yeah.
Man, and that dude, he actually done it twice. His opponent's actually done it twice. That guy's actually done it twice in his career, man. He's got a really bad aim, let's say, or he's got a really accurate aim. I don't know. What I saw of Vince, for me, my only frustration with him was, obviously, I'm sure he's still developing with Team Alpha Male, but I thought he was a bit flat-footed, kind of low output, not great combinations. For me, Jordan Griffin's kind of opposite, man. Kind of good, mixes up strikes really well, nice angles and footwork. And what I think Murdoch will try and do is possibly get to the fight to the ground, because you saw that Griffin's a bit weaker on his back, but Griffin's quite a good guy on his back for surprise. Like with Ige, submissions, nearly got Ige in guillotine, sweeps. I think there's a little bit of an unearthed talent with Griffin on his back, and I think that Murdoch might get caught out if he goes for this kind of takedown stuff, but I'm going to go for Griffin for decision win, because I just think his striking overall should take him onto the win there. But yeah, next up we have in the bantamweight division, Journey Newsom against Ricardo Ramos. Now, I like this matchup for Ricardo Ramos, if I'm honest. I know it's both of them short notice fights for Jordan Griffin and Ricardo Ramos, so they're obviously on the betting side of things. They'll be heavy favourites. But Journey Newsom, the footage I could find of him, I thought that he looks a powerful guy, but again, I just don't see. I think Ricardo Ramos has got a decent chin. So if he does get hit by Newsom, which looks like he packs a bit of power, I think Ramos is going to be okay. He does do that slight tall man syndrome with the lean back when he gets strikes thrown at him. But I think Ramos, the variety of striking, he's got a good cardio, good output. In his fights that I've seen in his UFC tenure as well, that he does not do too bad in his fights. I think Journey Newsom, adrenaline, I think because he looks quite compact for that weight class, quite strong. I worry about maybe what's his energy levels. Is he going to try and keep with the Ricardo Ramos kind of pace and the output? If he does, I think that might kind of deter him down. I think I'll probably go Ramos decision, because I think Newsom is going to be quite slow pace. He's going to take his time and try to counter strike when Ramos comes in. But I'm going to go Ramos decision. But I think Ramos is just going to play it safe in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to take Ramos as well. I think if you forget about the fact that Newsom's a newcomer, I just think Ramos is just a little bit better everywhere, and I think that we can't necessarily, like you said, there's not a ton of tape on Newsom, excuse me. And I talked to Newsom the other day, and he was very honest in his assessment. He was saying, hey, this is a tough fight for me to take on short notice. Like, obviously he was saying he took it very seriously and whatnot. But, when you hear that, I guess there's two things that can come into my head, and they're kind of opposites. One of them being, hey, this guy thinks he's in over his head, or, hey, this guy's being honest with himself. And that's how a fighter goes out there and wins fights, when they're not overestimating their opponent. So take that for what it is. I think this is not an easy fight for your short notice UFC debut. And I think Ramos, he got finished in his last fight to a solid guy in Nurmagomedov. And before that, the 3 fights that led up to that, I thought he looked great. So I'm going to go with Ramos just because I feel like he's a bit more proven, to me at least. But, Newson, maybe with the full camp, I would think about this fight differently. But I see Ramos getting the decision nod.
Yeah, that body shot by Nurmagomedov and Ramos was nasty. Oof, oof, that would put anyone just down. Next up, we've got the big boys now stepping up, heavyweight division. Maurice Greene, Junior Albini. Yeah, what are you seeing here, Nolan? What are you looking forward to on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to say that I'm going to pick Maurice Greene. With heavyweights, I'm always tempted to pick inside the distance, but I don't know particularly how that would work out. Maybe, Greene's got a good submission game. He kind of, at least for heavyweights, at least for lower tier, UFC preliminary fight heavyweights, I think that he brings a unique, set of skills to the table. So I don't know if we've seen Albini get submitted before. I don't know if it's going to happen this time. I kind of have that feeling where, after maybe a exciting back and forth first round in terms of, them winging big punches, maybe somebody gets hurt. I think as the fight goes on, it'll become more evident that this fight's going to go the distance. I think we saw that with Greene in his last fight against Jeff Hughes. So I'm going to say Greene by decision. Maybe not the most pretty win in the world, but I'm just going to – I feel like he's on a bit of a roll right now. And Albini, I'm not really sure if he's progressed much in his last few fights. So I'm gonna lean with Greene in this one, and I think it's kind of do or die for Albini here. So if he does lose, I'm assuming that he'll be on the chopping block.
Yeah, I kind of feel Greene. He's kind of smart because he knows that he's got the kickboxing background. He's got a kickboxing kind of style with background and style, and that people want to try and get him on his back. And he has got that good, like you say, that good submission. That's surprising submission. I didn't expect him to have such a good submission game off his back. He's got the triangles for the legs, and I think that Albini would be smart not to try and take it to the ground, because I haven't seen much from Albini when he does go to the ground. I'm a bit attentive. Of course, we don't know what's going on in the gym. We don't know what Albini's worked on, but in a bout, I've not seen too much from him. I think Greene probably will be a lot more efficient with his striking in this one, and should just pick Albini off with that jab. Just use those front kicks and jab, and just be able to 1-2s, keep it basic, and just pick Albini apart. I question if Albini should be really UFC kind of level. I know the heavyweights I feel like the UFC give the heavyweights a little bit more slack with the losses, because obviously in that division it's a lot easier with one punch finishes than it is, for example, the lower divisions. But I think I'm with you. I think Albini's got a lot to fight for here, and who knows, he could go all out for it. But I'm going to go with Maurice on this one too. Next up, we have in the women's strawweight division, Emily Whitmire against Amanda Ribas, who had a debut apparently 2 years ago, but then got popped. I'm not sure I can't remember what it was she got popped for, because after Sean O'Malley stuff coming out recently, I've got a bit I could have got mixed up with everything now. I don't know what anyone's on, but she probably had some, I don't know, hand lotion that had something in it, or something. You sort of get anyone for everything these days. Emily Whitmire, I like her as a fighter. I think she's showing some good development. When I watch her compete, I thought that, was it the Gillian Robertson fight? She got the armbar. She got armbarred there. But when she came against Jamie Moyle and Albu, that Albu stoppage, that was impressive. Because I thought I had Albu in that fight, because I thought girl's strong. But man, Emily was just on her like in a in a beat, she just got on her back quick, and that rear naked choke was on before they really even got settled on the ground. That was some slick transitions there. I was super impressed with that. And what I liked about that is if a fighter's doing something like that, it means they're opportunistic and they've got a good scramble. And a good scramble in MMA is absolutely huge. Amanda Ribas, she got beat by Poliana Viana in Brazil when they fought in Brazil, and that was because I feel really bad for her actually because she slipped, and as she got up, that's when she got clipped by Viana, and I was like, oh man, I bet she's itching to get a fight with her again. She's good on a stand up. Amanda, she is not a bad stand-up striker. She's got some good strikes and she's got a good output on her. My only kind of concern is questionable level of opponents that she has fought, apart from Viana. That's the only question you think. Emily's had the big lights. She's all good, and I thought the performance against Albu kind of went, oh, she's working on everything here. She's growing. I'm going to pick Emily. I think Ribas will come out with everything. 2 years out, obviously, the problem is I don't know what Amanda's done in 2 years. She could have done a lot. You and I know that 2 years people can change tenfold. So she can come out being the cleanest, nastiest striker we've ever seen. But going off what I can see and what I have seen, I'm going to pick Emily. I'm going to go with Emily's submission again.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there when you said that you got to go off of what you know, and I'm going to pick Whitmire as well. I think a submission's a good pick in this fight. Ribas, obviously had the USADA issue. I don't know how that factors into her performance going forward, and just Whitmire's ability to evolve is so key here. Where she was looking like maybe she wasn't going to be somebody that was sticking around in the UFC for very long, and then she had that fight against Jamie Moyle. She gave an awesome post-fight interview in that fight. She was fired up. She was going at Vinny Magalhaes, yelling at him. So clearly she's somebody that's motivated. She's somebody that's improved, and we saw that in her last fight against Albu where she looked very good. So I expect her, if she keeps on that same trajectory, I'm going to take her here. I think Ribas, like you said, the questionable, the questionable level of opposition that she's fought in Brazil, that's always, just it's such a tough thing to weigh, just because we've seen some fighters, like I'm thinking like Nasrat Haqparast, for example. I remember when he got signed, everybody was saying, why did the UFC sign this guy? He's only fought, really low level regional talent in countries that don't have a great MMA scene. And, he comes in and he's looked great and he's gotten better every fight. And he's, in my opinion, like one of the best prospects in his weight class. So it's really not a perfect science, but I think more times than not, when, level of competition does help, it gives you an experience. It gives you an experience when you're tested, when you're challenged, when you have to overcome adversity. So I don't really see that with Ribas on the regional scene. And just for that, I'm a little afraid of the unknown. So I'm going to lean with Emily Whitmire here. I think she gets it done inside the distance by submission.
Nice. Light heavyweight division coming up now. In theory, two heavyweights got light heavyweights. We've got Justin Ledet taking on, oh gosh, here we go, Dalcha Lungiambula. Now, even the commentators say Dalcha. They don't even say his surname in the commentary, just to give you all a heads up, folks. So don't shoot me down. I am absolutely awful with pronunciations on names that aren't simple, like Smith, Ledet, Albini. I can do all them. I'm all right. But no, light heavyweight matchup, debut, Dalcha. What are you seeing in this fight?
I think this was a great signing by the UFC. He's a guy that a lot of, I was, just talking to people in the MMA scene, he was almost like he was an anomaly down in South Africa where he was fighting. Fighters didn't want to fight him there. They're having a tough time finding heavyweights to fight him. Now he's moving to a light heavyweight to take on Justin Ledet, who's another big body, a guy that fought at heavyweight in the UFC previously. And Ledet, when he came into the UFC, he was gaining some traction. People were excited about him. He had the professional boxing background. He had a great jab. He was somebody I felt like a lot of people were getting excited about. And since that time, he's gone on a bit of a skid. He had the loss to Rakic. We know how good Rakic is now, so maybe that doesn't look as bad. And then the Johnny Walker fight, again, lost to another tough opponent. So it's really tough to say where he's at right now, just because he's fought these guys when they're surging. when they're on the incline versus on the decline. So I guess this is a really good fight. I think maybe people are overlooking it a little bit just because Dalcha is a new name. I'm going to lean with Dalcha. I think that he has a good chance of catching Ledet early. I think his striking is pretty good. He's got a lot of power. So I'm going to lean with Dalcha. I'm going to say that, he gets it done. I'll say second round TKO. But who knows? If Ledet drags him into the later waters here, at a UFC pace, this could be a longer night for Dalcha. But I just, having seen him fight on the regional scene and knowing his reputation, I'm going to say that he gets it done in the second round via TKO.
Yeah, he's been hurting people on the regional scene. He throws a lot of power in his strikes, but one thing I've noticed is his ground game is not the strongest. When he's on his back, that dude ain't going nowhere. He's on his back for a long period of time. The only way he gets out is by using strength. And as I don't know how much you know yourself, Nolan, by doing jiu-jitsu, but you cannot bench press people all day long, especially if someone's 200 plus pounds. That gets hard, especially. So I my only worry with Dalcha is the grappling side, because Ledet, surprisingly, he's not too bad. What people don't know is this dude is slick with some of the moves he's got on the ground. And I'm like, I know he's a boxer, but I'm like, look at this fight going, God dang, Justin, just get this dude down and rain on him. Stuart Austin did it in the FC bout. Stuart Austin, I cannot believe the referee didn't stop the fight. He absolutely rained everything onto him, smashed his face, half his face up. And then weirdly in the next round, Stuart Austin was on the ground getting strikes and getting striked on, and the referee stepped in. I was like, what's the difference? How do you differentiate the two, man? But I think I'm going to go with Justin on this one. Again, let's see how the travel affects Dalcha. Justin, for me, the boxing is a big factor. Even though he's not going to be throwing heavy shots, I think Ledet could possibly just be outsmarting Dalcha. He's a far more polished striker with the hands. Use those 1-2s, use the jabs, keep him on the end of the straight. And if anything, if it does, grab him, clinch him, get him to the ground, little inside leg trips, get it down there, and just tire out that huge muscle mass that Dalcha has, because people, it's great looking like you're, Mr. Olympia, but it doesn't actually, MMA wise, it don't benefit. Look at Daniel Cormier is the best way to put it, Dan Henderson is another good one. Shogun, you know what I mean? You don't have to look like, Mr. Universe to be the world champ. So I'm actually going to side with Ledet here. I think he can just pip this one with just suave boxing, maybe get a decision. But yeah, next up we have this one. I think it's going to be a good fun fight. Lightweight division, Jared Gordon against Dan Barret. Jared, both of them coming off losses. KO, TKOs, however you want to call it. And for me, I think Jared Jordan's was a combination of exhaustion, so to speak, because him and Jarquin just beat the living hell out of each other, and they got to like the third round, and it was, they were just exhausted. Jared Jordan's, Duke Rufus Sport, tough guy, man. And he's actually really good with his hands. He was looking really good in that fight, man. I'm kind of favouring him in this one. I think Moret's going to try and get it to the ground, but I think Jared Jordan's got actually legit takedown defense when it comes to someone like Moret. I don't think Moret mixes up his takedown offense enough. Like, I don't see him switching it from like a single to a double, or even, anything like a hip toss, anything like that. I don't see enough of a kind of variety for him to catch someone like Jared Jordan. Now, I think, especially with Jared training with the likes of, Tyron Woodley and stuff like that, and Ben Askren, who's not too bad at wrestling, as we know, I think he's, I think he's going to be all right. I think, Moret for Alex White and Gilbert Burns, and he I know he lost the fight. He didn't look too bad, but I just think that Moret's possibly just a little bit out of his depth. And I think Jared Jordan's going to get the win here. I wouldn't be surprised if he got a TKO, but yeah, I'm going to go TKO, Mr. Jordan here. But what are you seeing, Nolan?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Gordon's just, this might sound like too much of a blanket statement, but I just feel like he's a little bit better everywhere.
Yeah.
We saw that in his last fight. Man, I have to tell you, there's a short list of fights that I've watched in my 9 years of following the sport that I felt like that amazed at somebody's toughness. I mean, the amount of shots that he took, especially in the finishing sequences, it was like, if you had to put that into an action movie or a Rocky movie, people wouldn't believe it. I mean, he just got walloped there at the end. Absolutely brutal knockout by Joaquim Silva. So he's clearly got the chin. He was finished in that fight, but he can hang in there and take a punch. That's for sure. It takes a lot to get Jared Gordon out of there. So even though he's been finished in his last 2 fights, I still give him the edge. I think Moret, the fight against White was decent. Like you said, he was competitive. He wasn't totally outclassed, but I felt like there were some times where it was really evident to me that can get pretty sloppy and just, I think Gordon's just a step above him. So, like you said, training at Rufus Sport day in and day out, that will obviously help. I believe Moret, if I'm not mistaken, I think is an MMA lab guy. So he also has some good training partners.
Sure.
So it got good experience both ways, but I just feel like Gordon's just that one step above. So I'm going to take him. I'll say he gets it done. I'll say a decision. I'll say Moret, guts it out. He's a guy that's fought good competition on the regional scene. A lot of guys that went on to go to the UFC. Yeah. So he's kind of a seasoned guy, even though he's only had 2 UFC fights. And I'm going to go with Gordon. I say he gets it done by decision.
Nice. And light heavyweight division, man, I love this human being, man. Eryk Anders is fighting. I've interviewed him a couple of times. I remember interviewing him before he got in the UFC, and he was such a cool dude. And then when he got in the UFC, there's no different, and that's the kind of human being I enjoy talking to. He's taking on Vinicius Moreira. Now, what are you going to look at this fight, man? Because obviously, someone lost their debut. Anders is on a 3-fight skid. What do you see though in the fight?
I mean, the thing that sticks out to me about this fight is that Eryk Anders is finally taking a step back. Like, I feel like he was rushed into this thing so quickly from the start. They gave him, he fought Machida like a couple fights into his career, UFC career in a main event. Like, sure, he got the step back against Tim Williams, and he looked, that was probably his, in terms of his wins, that was probably his most shaky performance in which he pulled out a victory. But then he goes to Thiago Santos on short notice. He fights Elias, who's not a fun fight to have. And then Khalil Roundtree outclasses him. So I feel like he was just all of a sudden rushed up the ladder, and that was kind of the expectation of him. He wasn't given many fights to build. He wasn't given many fights to rebound. So I kind of like that we're taking a step back here, that he doesn't necessarily, have to go into one of these fights against an absolute killer. But that's the thing about MMA. I mean, it's a big opportunity for Maeda too, for Anders to be taking a step down. So I'm sure he feels like he has a lot to prove. His first fight clearly, obviously, didn't go the way that he wanted to against Alonzo Menifield. So I'm interested to see, Anders take that step back, see what he can do against a guy like Maeda. And, I'm going to take him. I'm going to say he gets it done. I'll say second round knockout for Eryk Anders, and that he snaps the 3-fight losing streak that he's on.
Yeah, I feel Eryk just needs to stop. He just needs to stop fighting. He keeps taking these fights. Like, someone pulls out, he's like, I'll step in. I'm like, dude, go away. Yes. Let your body recover and train. I'm like, the UFC aren't going to forget who you are. You're contracted to them, man. He's got the ability, he's got the athleticism, he's got that kind of ingrained in him. And I just feel like saying to him, dude, just take like 6 months away. 6 months and you'd be golden, good solid 4 months of development, 2-month fight camp, and you'll be a different human being. Look at Khalil Roundtree. Like, Khalil went over to Thailand, got shown some badass little combinations, came over and looked like a different human being. And I feel like Eryk could benefit in that way, so to speak, if he went to somewhere to do that. But I think he's got a good chance against Vinny because, man, for me, when Vinny's standing, he has not got the best defense. He wants to get the fight to the ground because that's his go-to. He's very good on the ground, very good submission artist. But Eryk, he's going to be shorter. He's going to have the lower center of gravity. And I think Eryk should be okay because, for me, for example, Vinny's not like an Elias. Elias has got the footwork to just get away from everyone, as we've seen, where he runs around. And like you said, he's not a fun dude to fight because he just does this. Elias is like, he was just very smart with Eryk. He just touched and ran. And that was it. And it was like, cool, I got my point. That's me. That's my round. Done. Thank you. With Vinny, though, he's not got the footwork. I don't really believe he's got the hands. All he wants to do is grapple. So he's going to hope that Eryk charges and that he can clinch up with it to try and get the fight to the ground. But I'm going with Eryk hand as well. I think you can maybe stop him in the first, if I'm honest. Because I just think Vinny, unless he's done a lot of boxing, I think he's there to be hit, man. Unless he can get you to the ground, I don't think he's at the level of Demian Maia grappling and evasiveness on the strikes. But I'm going to go with Eryk as well. Your boy, Eryk, as he says. Next up, we have light heavyweight division. The man who beat Vinny, Alonzo, Menifield against Paul Craig, who somehow keeps pulling out these random, gets battered and wins. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to randomly think, I'm going to pick Alonzo, but I actually think that Paul will somehow get a last 10-second submission. It's just what he does.
Yeah, he's just I used the word anomaly earlier.
Yeah,
I don't know what this guy, how he does it, but it's becoming his thing, you know.
It is.
Yeah.
I think the UFC though, because they keep giving him like new guys or guys who are around that. So I feel that the UFC aren't maybe seeing him as anything further than that because they've done it several times now. I understand doing it once or twice, but they keep doing it. So I feel like the UFC see Paul Craig as like not a gatekeeper, but a welcome guy. And like you need guys like that in your division. You know, as much as it sounds awful, but they do need guys like that. My only question obviously is always Paul's chin. You know, because when he gets hit, he doesn't like getting hit too much. And Alonzo does not hold back when he throws. Man, that dude can crack. Man, he has got some power in his hands. And I'm looking forward to Alonzo. I think he can catch Paul because he's super aggressive coming forward and throws heavy. My only concern for Paul is, and I've got a lot of time for Paul as well, is that when he comes back, if you watch when he's coming back, his hands go forward a bit to try and kind of anticipate the strikes coming to try and parry them away, which leaves the gap between the hands and the face. He can leave himself open to like if you throw like a double jab and a hook, or even like a 1-2 left hook around the gap, it's there. And I think Alonzo can land on Paul and hurt him. And I think because Alonzo's he's a bit short as well. I believe he's got nice short snap. I think Paul will have a bit of a tougher time to get it down to the ground. He might have to pull guard maybe or something. But I'm going to go with Alonzo. I think he might get a finish here. But don't be shocked, people, when Paul Craig gets a submission in the last 10 seconds.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Alonzo Menifield by first-round knockout. I have to say, though, you know, I've made the last 3 fights of Paul Craig's career. I've picked against him every time.
Everyone has.
And Paul Craig doesn't care about my fight predictions. He cares about what he's doing. So he might make me look bad again. It's kind of his MO at this point. But I think that, like you said, he doesn't like to get hit. We saw that in the Tyson-Pedro fight where, you know, it seemed like he kind of almost pulled guard. Kind of a weird finish in that fight if you go back and watch it. You know, I never want to question somebody to say that, oh, they wanted out or anything. But just the way he went really on the defensive after he got hit, and that led to the finish. Kind of sticks out in my mind still. And then just Menifield's explosiveness in general. He's, you know, Craig's fought guys that have good striking abilities in the last couple fights. You know, Ankalaev, obviously, we saw what he did with the head kick, and I believe it was his most recent fight. And Chukwu's a guy that's known for knockouts. Jim Crute's got some power, but I just feel like Menifield is that guy that's going to come out of the gates ablazing, throwing bombs. And he's not going to let Craig off the hook. He's not going to let a veteran, you know, survive and wear him down. I just feel like Menifield, he's got too much power in his hands, and I think there's a high likelihood that he connects. And against Craig, I think that's just a recipe for an Alonzo Menifield first-round finish.
Nice, bro. And next up, we have lightweight division. Drew Dober against Marco Polo Reyes, who we all can say that he brings a fight. Like, Reyes is never a dull fighter, so I enjoy when I see his name down on the sheet. I like it. He's a good, fun fighter to watch. So who do you see in this fight then? Who are you favoring?
I'm going to take Drew Dober. I think, like you said, Polo Reyes always brings it. He's got his MO as being an exciting guy. I think the Dong Young Kim, aka Dong Young Ma now, I think when those two fought, on the undercard of UFC 199, that's still a top 10 fight for me since that I was able to witness live in my 9 years of watching the sport. So he always brings it. He's got power. He's a do or die fighter. I think all three of his last three fights have ended in a knockout one way or another. So I believe this will be a fun fight. Dober's a guy that likes to exchange too. We've seen great fights that he's put on with Frank Camacho and others. Dober has improved tremendously since his UFC debut. I think he's flown really under the radar here. I'm sure that the division has something to do with it, being that he's a lightweight. But I think if you go back and watch his early fights, and he finally picked up I believe it was his first win at the time against Jamie Varner. I remember, and it was on a knockout that Varner threw, suplex, kind of knocked himself out type of deal. I remember when I watched that, I was very happy for him at the time. Obviously, not feeling great for Varner, but I was like, man, this guy, he's always been blue collar. He's maybe not UFC caliber, and he got his win. That's going to be his moment. And every fight in and fight out, he's fought tougher guys. He's done well. He's improved. And I'm excited to see where he goes from here. I just feel like he's a little bit of a more well-rounded fighter than Polo Reyes, and I'm sure he's going to be taking a lot away from the last fight that he had against Beneil Dariush. So I'm going to take Drew Dober. I'm going to say he gets it done by decision, and I think he'll get back in the win column in Minnesota.
Yeah, he cracked Beneil in that fight as well, man. He caught him in the first round a few times. I was like, whoa, those hands were quick, and it was nice combinations. Yeah, Drew is a really nice guy as well. I remember meeting him. UFC Liverpool. He was at that card, and I was like, I was just got in the elevator. I was like, stood there going, had to look twice. I went, "You're Drew Dober." He went, "Yeah." I went, because trust me, he ain't 155 pounds when he ain't fighting. Yeah. A little bit rounder in the face, but he's a lovely guy. But like you said, I like his offense. His strike combinations are just keep coming along each time. He's like you say, every time he fights, he gets a bit more confident with his strike and a bit more fluid. And his transition from strikes to takedowns is very good, and it catches a lot of guys out. He's very good at that because what it does is it negates you being offensive back. So while you're you might want to throw a counter, he's already initiating a grappling exchange where you have to then defend rather than be offensive. So he's good with that, and I think that's something I would certainly bring to the table if I was fighting someone like Reyes, because Reyes does like to throw as well. And if I'm Drew, I'll be throwing strikes and straight shooting in for that takedown there. And I think Drew will get it down to the mat. I think he will. I think he'll get Reyes down a couple of times. I'll go decision because Reyes is tough, and that dude can not only throw a punch, he can take a punch. I'm going to go with Drew decision. I just think he's smart enough now. He's a good, well-rounded fighter. The Beneil fight, let's be honest, Beneil is a world-class grappler. So to be submitted by Beneil, I wouldn't be too fussed. I wouldn't be, it's also if I'd lose any sleep over. But yeah, I think Drew's a legit guy, man. He's a good talent in that lightweight division. Again, mate, like you say, it's so saturated. It's so hard to keep track of that lightweight division of guys who are standing out or who are on good runs because there's too many guys in there. Again, another lightweight fight. Roosevelt Roberts against Vinc Pichel. This is an interesting one because Vince he's just a bundle of power. And that dude is like, it doesn't even look like he hits you hard. And guys look like they've been hit by a meteor. Like, that dude has got some weird, crazy power in him, man. And Roosevelt is an upcoming talent. I actually like Roosevelt as a fighter in general. I think he's an exciting prospect. I think he's a good talent. Very green still. He needs a lot of polishing up on certain aspects of his game. Never mind just striking. Vince, experienced, knowledgeable, been around the fight game for many years. I'm going to go Vince in this one. And the only reason is, I just think the kind of inexperience, so to speak, or the kind of, like you say, the big eyes that Roosevelt has in the fight game, he will fall into the striking of Vince. He'll fall into a counter strike, or it'll just. It won't be an intentional thing, but I just think Vince is just going to be patient. Let Roosevelt come at him with his kind of combination of different strikes. There's no point in trying to take Roosevelt down. Just stay striking him. But I think Vince can actually stop him with his power, man, because he hits some goddamn hard. I'm going to go like maybe second round. I think Vince, first round, Roosevelt will get going. Vince will get the timings down, and that's when he'll start to let go in a second. So I'm going to go second round Vince here, man.
Yeah, this is a really tough fight to call. I was surprised when I saw the odds come out earlier this week, and they had Roberts favored so heavily. I mean, he's almost a 3-1 favorite in almost every major book. So I was a little surprised by that. It's really tough. I think this is one of the toughest things in the sport is to, you might have an idea of the trajectory that a fighter's on, where, you say, I think one day he's going to get here. I know he is. I think he's improving if you see it. But it's really hard when you have a guy that's more experienced, that's been around, who's fought tougher competition, and then you got the young lion that's creeping up, and it's just, is he ready yet? Is he ready yet? That's the toughest matchup in the sport. And if people have seen my predictions previously and see me on any other shows, you'll know that most times, I would say 8 times out of 10, I usually side with the veteran. Not necessarily always the best at picking these kind of fights, but I agree with you, man. I think this is my upset pick for the card. My big underdog pick for the card, I guess, if you're looking at the books. But I'm going to go with Pichel by decision as well. I just think we've seen him. He's proven. He's looked really good against veteran guys, and I feel like Roberts, he's fought 2 guys that were towards the bottom of the division so far in the UFC. The guy that he fought in Contender Series was not necessarily the best fighter that they've had on that show either. So I'm going to lean with Pichel. I think it'll be a really good learning experience for Roberts, regardless, win or lose. I think it's going to be really close. I think he'll go the distance. And I think Pichel's just going to edge him out. But that's not to say that Roberts doesn't have a bright future. I think, if you were to talk about this fight a year from now, I think, Roberts, we'd probably be talking about how he's going to win this fight. He's a guy the UFC is very high on. In a recent interview, Dana White had to name. They asked him, which fighters on the come up do you think are the ones that we should watch for that are going to be future champions? He named about 7 or 8 names, and Roosevelt Roberts was one of them. So I think that's very telling about the UFC and what they think about Roberts. But I just think Pichel right now at this point in time, he, even if he's constant, even if he's not improving, I just think it might be a little bit above where Roberts is at this moment.
Yeah, I'm high on Roberts for the future too. I think he's got something about him. But man, it's an interesting fight up next. Demian Maia against Tony Martin. Man, big step up there for Tony Martin. What are you looking at here?
Yeah, this is a big one. This is like kind of what we were talking about a minute ago, only like a couple steps above. You've got the guy that's a contender, and then you got the guy that's looking to break into the top 15, and he's looked really good and he's improved, and they're meeting in a similar scenario. So for me, I'm not trying to steal Ariel Helwani's gimmick. I know he has a few phrases he says, but like the y'all must have forgot moment, I feel like that might be what we're going with Demian Maia here. I think it might be, I think this might be one of those fights, kind of like when Maia fought Lyman Good in his last fight, where you just realize, all right, Maia's been losing to top guys, but that doesn't mean that he's declining in his abilities. That doesn't mean that he's done yet. He's still there for a reason. It's just maybe the guys that he was fighting before are really that damn good. So I'm going to take Maia. I think that, the decision is more than likely. I could see a submission, obviously, with Maia. Any fight that he's in, you can see a submission. Actually, I'm going to say 3rd round submission for Demian Maia. But I think Martin will have his moments in the fight, and I think it'll be a good test for him to see exactly where he's at.
Yeah, I think it's a big test. Like you said, I think people sleep on Maia way too much.
Yes.
He's only lost to guys. Everyone he's lost to, bar one person, has either been the champ or fought for the belt. The only guy he lost to who hadn't was Mark Munoz, and that was it. Everyone else was in that top echelon. Everyone else outside of it, he goes through them like a hot knife through butter. There are levels to this game, and don't get me wrong, Tony Martin is quick in this division because he's obviously coming up from 155 and he's got good quick hands. But Maia's just somehow gets you to the ground. Like, apparently he's got freak grip, strength, power. Like, apparently people have said that he is so goddamn strong when he gets older. And I just think he will do it again. I think that he just doesn't lose to guys like your Goodmans or your Tony Martins. I just can't see it. I just think, I don't know, unless Tony Martin's going to never clinch in the whole fight and jab him for the whole fight, I just can't see it. Maia somehow gets you down. and this might be in a smaller cage as well, which people don't take into account, but I take it. I think this might be a smaller cage, being a fight night card, which always, makes it a bit easier for the guy to get the grappling exchanges if he wishes to, because it's a smaller cage to close guys off on. So I'm going Maia as well, buddy. I'm with you on that. And next,
I'm just going to rant for a second here.
Yeah,
I think I'm sure you allow rants on the show, but I have to say, I think one of the more pleasant changes we've seen in the last 2 years too. I just listened to your take on Demian Maia and how you sound, you have a certain, like I do, a certain amazement that comes with him. Yeah. But I have to say, it's funny, like 3 years ago, I remember people used to treat him like Jared Rochel, that, oh, Demian Maia's fighting now, like we have to watch this again, the guy blanket people. I'm proud of the MMA community for stepping up, and now he seems like he's getting the appreciation that he deserves, because I feel like the general consensus now, every time he fights, is that people really have an appreciation for what he does. And I think when veterans lose, we lose that a little bit, but I've been so happy to see him finally get the recognition he deserves. Seems like a great guy too. And I think that, like you said, sorry to take away from the flow of this whole thing, but it needed to be said. I think it's something that's gone unnoticed, just how popular he's become over the last 2 years,
I met him in Manchester. Awesome human being. One of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I met him and Dan Henderson within 10 minutes. Couldn't top. One of the best days of my life. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, that's Dan Henderson and that's Damian Maia. Meeting them two dudes, like, you don't know how awesome you guys are. Yeah, Damian Maia, super nice human being. But co-main event now, rematch, Jussier Formiga against Joseph Benavidez in the semi-Quasimodo flyweight, what the hell is going on division. This is a weird one because I love the flyweights, all right, because of their technical ability is absolutely sublime. The fact that they hit such a high level of technical aspect in such a high speed, it blows my mind. I'm like, God damn, that is quick. I have to watch fights in slow-mo for some parts to see the combinations, the footwork to move. That's how good it is. But I can't get excited now because I don't know what the hell is going on. I don't think anyone knows. Man, like Formiga, he's on a good run. He's on a good streak. He's doing really well. And obviously, he's trying to maybe get a stab at that belt before he obviously retires and the vision retires or whatever. But Benavidez is kind of on the same wavelength. I don't know if maybe they're keeping it alive for Benavidez, because obviously Benavidez has that kind of long history, and Megan, his missus, is the employment of the UFC. Now, I'm not saying they're doing a favor for him, but I wouldn't be shocked, all right? But, are they maybe holding it for Joseph to have a fight with Henry, which can't happen for now another 6 to 8 months because of the injury, which actually messes up the flyweight division. So never mind, it was already in a bit of a dilemma. It's in a double dilemma now. I'm going, though, if I go on this matchup, I go with Joseph Benavidez. I thought the last, when he came back after his injuries, he looked a bit slow, a bit off, a bit out of pace, and obviously lost the fight. But since then, it's almost like each match he's having, he's just getting that groove back. He's getting that momentum back. He was always like the Junior Santos of the flyweights, just always second place. But he was always below Demetrius Johnson just because he was never going to have that crown because DJ was there. And I still feel that way with Joseph now. He's always going to be the number 2, but he's the number 2 by a distance. And I think Formiga's shown improvements, but I just don't think he can stop what Justin's going to throw down. I think Justin's just an all-round high elite level flyweight guy. And I think if, for example, it was Pettis that Joseph lost to, I think if they fought now, I think Joseph would absolutely destroy Sergio Pettis if they rematched. But yeah, I'm going to go decision for Benavidez. But what it means, I have no idea.
Yeah, and I apologize for everybody watching this that I'm not able to disagree with you more here because, yeah, I totally agree, man. Like, I think Benavidez's decision's a really safe bet here. Formiga is super underappreciated in this division. I think over the last 2 fights we've seen that. He's back-to-back underdog wins. He's won 4 in a row now. I'm really excited about this fight, but I get where you're coming from too. It's tough to, especially in MMA, where a big part of why people get excited about fights is the fact it's almost like a puzzle, figuring out where everybody fits in the division. A win over this guy will propel them into the title picture. Those are big storylines that come with every fight, and for us to not really know, what the future of 125 is. I mean, it seems like, I know a lot of people think Dana White, talks a lot of shit that doesn't end up happening, and I totally get that, but I actually believe him in this instance that the flyweights will stick around for a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if we see them start to reinvent the division a little bit, actually. But for now, we haven't seen too many indications of that. So it's tough for me to see a lot of value in this fight, other than that it's a phenomenal fight between two elite 125-pounders. Like you said, technique, on the technical side of things, this is about as high level as it gets. So I'm excited for the matchup. I think that they're both really elite fighters, and it's just too bad that they're getting underappreciated in the manner that they are. And I hope the flyweights, I hope that they're resurrected from the grave, on the brink of death. It seems like this is the last life, and I hope they make the UFC capitalizes on this and resuscitates it, because I'm looking forward to this matchup a lot, just from just a technical standpoint. And I'm going to pick Benavidez by decision, and hopefully a title shot for the winner, regardless of who takes it.
Yeah, I think it's like a number one contender spot, but I'm just like, it's hard, man, because I don't know what it is. Because, like I say, I think obviously with Henry being injured, it really messes up. So in theory, they'll fight now. That they might not fight till March next year. And that's if he defends the flyweight belt, because obviously he's got a bantamweight title. It's an awkward one, really awkward. But next up, main event, Francis Ngannou, the pillow puncher, against Junior Dos Santos. How do you see it going down, big man?
Ooh, this is a tough one. I honestly, if they were going to move a fight from another card to replace Lawler versus Woodley, this was a great fight to take. Looking at the International Fight Week card, this was arguably the fight I was the most excited about. So for it to get its own shine here is awesome. But as far as the matchup goes, man, I mean, this is a tough one. I think heavyweights in general, it's cliche, but it's such a tough division to choose, just because it's never consistent. We've seen so many oddities. It only takes one screw up to end a fight. I'm going to lean with Ngannou here. I think that he'll get an early knockout, but it's a puncher's chance. And Dos Santos, if you had asked me 2 years ago, would Junior Dos Santos be fighting for another title, I would have said probably not. But now he's arguably, I think, one of the most technically sound heavyweights out there. I think that he might be, in terms of striking, he might be the most technically sound. I think his last couple of fights, he's really presented some challenges for his opponents and made it evident that he provides a unique matchup to anybody in this division. I think that, man, this is a tough fight to pick, but I'm going to go. I'm gonna say it. Final answer. I'm gonna say Ngannou, second round knockout. But regardless, somebody's going down.
Yeah, but that's the thing, man. Junior Santos kind of reinvented himself, American top team as well. Yeah. He realized that his chin is not what it was, and that he has to fight a very smart way. He's got that long jab that he pops to the body a lot of the time as well. Which is the reason why he does that, people, is what he's doing. If you watch it, he's setting up the overhand right with it. So what he'll do is he'll throw that jab shot out. So then he mimics that movement to entry, to which people will drop their hands a bit to block it and comes over with the right. It's very smart. It's very nice. I like it. The Derek Lewis fight, he was doing that, and he landed that overhand right, and it hurt Derek Lewis. But my thoughts were like, man, Ngannou ain't slow like Derek Lewis. He's not like Tuivasa as well. Tuivasa's not that quick. I was like, Ngannou is quick. He is fast. Like, he will be on you and he will not get off. And that's my only worry for Junior Santos. He's reinventing himself a bit, but man, I think Ngannou's going to clip him, and it's going to send chicken legs. You see the chicken dance, and I think Junior Santos is not going to like it. And I'm going Ngannou as well, man. I just think that there's a lot of feeling out from JDS. He's going to try and get it, but I just think speed's going to kill, man. And I think Junior Santos is going to come in for combination, maybe try and throw a jab. And I think Ngannou's just going to go mental berserker with 3 or 4 punch strikes charging at him, man. And one has to land. That's what Ngannou has to do. Land one punch. Look what he did to Cain Velasquez. He didn't even flicked him when he was coming in, man. And he put him to his knees. Obviously Cain's, oh my gosh, he's done. But man, I'm going Francis Ngannou as well, man. I think he's going to really put a stamp down and maybe he might fight for the vacant title after DC probably defeat Stipe again. But I think Junior Santos, on the, kudos to him for reinventing himself. I think Alistair Overeem did the same. So I credit those two guys for reinventing themselves and prolonging their career in the UFC heavyweight division. But that is our picks for the fight card. We're not doing bets because we don't want to cause you lot to lose money. So apologies, no bets this week. But if you do have any bets, put them down below and let us know what you're going for. Always love to hear feedback. Last week someone won some money with some bets ideas that was a parlay that was thrown out there for you. So always great to hear that feedback. But before I shoot off, folks, and before Nolan goes, Nolan, thanks for joining. Let everyone know where they follow you and join you on social media, man.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, John. I really appreciate it. You and Will have, we've talked throughout the years on Twitter and whatnot. So it's good to finally see you face to face and come on your show. It's long overdue, and I appreciate you having me on. But yeah, you guys can find me at my new home, MMA Junkie. I'm sure you guys are, follow them on Twitter at MMA Junkie, and then Tapology. I'm still doing my thing with them. Got some big stuff in the works this year coming up here in terms of what I'm going to be doing with them and just the site and everything else. I think you guys are going to see some new things added in 2019 that you're really going to like. So yeah, it's evolving every day, and I'm excited to be on both teams. They're both tremendous teams, and just follow me on Twitter at MMA_Kings. But other than that, thanks again, John. I appreciate it, man.